Okay, this video is internist conversation number 5. Actually, in the links below, I'll try to put some of the previous videos. So I have conversations with different internal medicines doctors periodically and from other specialties too. And I'll sometimes record parts of the conversation in these things. I don't record them, of course, but I mean, I'll just remember them for these videos. And I have some nurse conversations ones that I thought were kind of funny. Okay, so anyways, this is internist conversation number 5. And these guys are the smartest ones, okay? Only the smartest ones actually really want to talk about complex pathophysiology. So anyways, this really smart internist, he says to me, Pete, I was reading about all these different diets, and it doesn't make sense. How could there be so many good diets for humans? And I noticed the high meat, high fat diets, they don't have any real data or epidemiology to support their claims. Then I figured it out. I said, figured it out? What do you mean? And he says the whole thing is fake. It's like the Flexner report. The big food and drug companies, they know that the low-fat vegan diet is the best, but they can't afford to allow the public to find that out. If the public realized that the low-fat vegan diet with no oils was the best diet, and they actually ate that way, then almost everyone would be healthy. The entire fast food, processed food, pharmaceutical industry, healthcare industry, it would collapse. It would be unsustainable. So they have to lie about nutrition. It's a necessity for their industry. Me. Well, that's why paleo, keto, carnivore gets about 100,000 views for every one view of a low-fat vegan. And then the sort of the moderate high-fat vegans, I call them the high-fat phonies, they get about 10,000 views for every one view of a low-fat vegan. Internist. Yep. And it's always going to be that way. Big food and big pharma will make sure of it. That's why, people who promote that stuff can get money. And I said, yeah, the typical paleo keto carb promoter is about 40 years of old. They're usually good looking, somebody like Chaffee or Saladino or some other good looking young guy or lady. And the average person's pretty stupid and lazy. They just look at these people and say, well, gee, that guy or gal's good looking. I want to look like that. I'm going to eat what they eat. They don't even try to understand the nutrition. They don't even realize that these people are lying to them. And, there's the other category. I call them the moderate to high-fat vegans, and they play it a little differently. They usually get a doctor who's smart and who's skinny, and I'll call them the high-fat phonies, and that doctor will tell them actually a lot of useful information. Probably 70, 80% of what they tell the public will be true. But then they trick them with the stuff that you could sell. They lie to them about the other stuff. They tell them olive oil is good, and omega-3s are good, and soy, and nuts, and seeds, and caffeine, and MSG, and all these supplements, and all this other BS. Nobody, that's why McDougall's the best. McDougall goes back to basic principles. Did our ancestors, all these blue zone people, all these people running around, functional illiterates, and, and bumfuck, they're just eating the local plant foods, and they're the healthiest people in the world. You don't need all this modern stuff. You don't need it at all. And stuff like, look at caffeine, okay? It raises stress hormones, and everybody knows stress is bad for you, sleep deprivation is bad for you, but then why would caffeine be good for you when it's doing the same thing? It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's not logically consistent. Internist. Not all the plant food recommender people that recommend the high-fat stuff are really your high-fat phonies or these categories you're talking about. I think a lot of them are younger, and a lot of them, they just don't know any better. And I said, yeah, they're lazy, or they haven't done the reading, or they're ignoramuses. I think a lot of them actually do mean well. They just don't know what they're talking about. Internist. How come you never lecture at the hospitals? You should be giving grand rounds several times a year at the universities. You should be doing traveling circuits between all the universities, giving their grand rounds every month. You should have monthly conferences, teaching the residents and the fellows. I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, right. You know why they don't invite me? Him. Yeah, I know. It's because you don't sell drugs. We can't have that. Not good for business. And I said, yeah, it's funny. Residency directors do not allow the residents to be taught anything that will actually teach them how to cure a patient. Internist. When I was young and wanted to be a doctor and then went through all this school and training, I never imagined that medicine could be like this. It's crazy. The conventional healthcare system is designed to make sure the patient is never cured. It's like we take advantage of these poor patients. We order tests to make a diagnosis, and then the diagnosis makes them feel now they've got a disease, so they need a treatment. And then for a treatment, we sell them drugs. Instead of talking to them and teaching them why they got the disease and how to get better, we don't get paid for that. There's no time for that. We're under pressure to go fast. I said, yeah, the system turns the doctor who wants to be a healer, but it turns him into a dealer, a drug dealer. And the way to cure patients has been known for a long time. Walter Kempner back in the 1940s and 50s figured out how to cure most of the chronic diseases. And then the other, great nutrition pioneer doctor experts like Dennis Burkitt, Nathan Pritikin, Roy Swank, T. Colin Campbell, and others, they've, in like Esselstyn and, some of the early work on Ornish, they've shown, that even more patients could be cured. Internist, yeah. And then McDougall put the whole thing together into a systematic approach, with the starch-based diet. And I'm like, he figured out everything was logically consistent. It fits with the research. It fits the anthropology, comparative anatomy, and clinical experience and epidemiology. The whole thing fits. Internist, yeah, that McDougall is great on the epidemiology stuff. I thought it was funny when Bart Kay says that epidemiology is a joke. And I know why he does it. Obviously, he has to do it because it proves that his paleo, keto, carnivore stuff is a joke. And I'm like, yeah, internist. And then there's other people who made great contributions, like Richard Moore. His book on, ion pumps and high blood pressure solution, that is an awesome book. He figured out the plasma membrane. That's one of the most useful books any healthcare person could ever read. Every single doctor or medical student should read that. They should read that in college. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. I said basically the physiology taught to, pre-meds and medical students is actually designed to avoid all the stuff that causes disease. Internist, yeah, I'll give you credit, Pete. You and Sloop especially, figured out all this blood flow stuff. And then you made sense of the cytoplasm, calcium, and mitochondria stuff and neuronal degeneration, dementia, and some other conditions. Well, thanks.